Born out of economic development in Sedalia, Pettis County, our goal is to create an ecosystem here in the community to identify and support our entrepreneurs. So now let's get into our program. The first half, we would love to feature Dr. Linda Langdon with Research Communique. So please put your hands together for Linda.
A tale of two dolls. Long ago and far away in a distant land named Germany, there lived a doll named Lily. Now, Lily was produced by the O&M Hauser Toy Corporation, and she was marketed as a risque gag gift for men. And all was well with Lily until one day in 1952, when a young girl named Barbara Handler, her parents, and her younger brother Kenneth visited Europe. And on a toy store shelf in Switzerland, Barbara saw Lily, and she immediately brought Lily to her parents' attention, whereupon Mr. and Mrs. Handler bought 3 Lily dolls. Now, lest you think that Mr. and Mrs. Handler were overly indulgent parents, you should know that back in the US, they owned the Mattel Toy Corporation. And when they saw Lily, but more importantly, their daughter's reaction to Lily, they thought, Eureka! We've discovered a new market opportunity. A teenage doll marketed to young girls. So they went back to the United States and they spent about 7 years developing their teenage doll. They released her to the toy market in 1959. They named her Barbie after their young daughter Barbara, who had discovered Lily on the toy store shelf. And by 1960, Barbie was the #1 toy in the US toy market. By the mid-1960s, nearly 500,000 Barbies had been sold, and she was responsible for increasing Mattel's revenues from about $25 million in 1963 up to over $100 million in 1965. Meanwhile, back in Germany, the O&M Hauser Toy Corporation continued to market Lily as a risque gag gift for men, completely unaware that a tidal wave named Barbie was about to wash over them. Barbie washed over Lily, completely wiped her from the marketplace, and Lily just faded away into toy history. So what the heck happened to poor Lily? Well, O&M Hauser failed to do basic competitive intelligence. They were completely unaware of changes in the toy market. When they did find out about Barbie in 1963, they didn't do any research on her US market share and position. Because of that, they underestimated Barbie's popularity, and because of that, they did not understand that Lily had potential value in this new changing toy market. And ultimately, they were unable to develop effective competitive strategies to ward off the threat to their market share posed by Barbie. So this story has a sad ending. O&M Hauser chose not to file a patent infringement lawsuit against Mattel. They eventually sold Lily's patent for the equivalent of $15,000 US, and ultimately they declared bankruptcy because not only did they not do competitive intelligence for Barbie, they didn't do it for any of their toys, and they didn't keep up with the market. So competitive intelligence is important for all businesses of all sizes, because that's what makes sure your business is a Barbie rather than a Lily. Competitive intelligence prevents businesses from being surprised by changes. It helps them to identify both opportunities and threats with greater efficiency and specificity. It provides the basis for effective strategizing, and it also improves long and short-term planning. And ultimately, it helps the business gain an overall competitive advantage because it helps a business to understand where they and their products fit into the greater marketplace. However, effective competitive intelligence programs are ambitious undertakings, probably more ambitious than most business owners have the time or the skills to undertake. Competitive intelligence requires effective, reliable, and legal information on customers, competitors, products, as well as on the political, economic, technical, and social aspects of the marketplace. It needs to be presented in a coherent, targeted, and accessible manner to the right people in the company at the right time. And it needs to be presented securely so that only those people who need access can get access and competitors cannot get access.
So for that, businesses need a competitive intelligence consultant like Research Communique. Competitive intelligence consultants like myself, we know how to find the right and ethical and legal information at the right place and the right time. We have the data science skills to create an automated, complete, competitive picture of the environment for the right people and deliver it to the right people at the right time. And because we are trained researchers and statisticians, we understand which data and analysis techniques are valid and will produce actionable and objective competitive intelligence insights for business owners. So competitive intelligence is important because it makes sure that your business is a Barbie. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So when I think of business intelligence, I think of large companies, well-established businesses that have been around for a long time, not something that a small business should be investing in. What is the appropriate time for a company in their life cycle?
Before they even start. You need to understand, before you start a business, you need to understand the market that you are entering. For example, I happen to know that in the 23 counties that roughly comprise mid-Missouri, there are 915 full-service restaurants. Probably not a good place to start a full-service restaurant, especially in Boone County. You need to know this. You need to know who your competitors are, where they're located, basic understanding of what they're paying for basic services. There's an example of a restaurant in Columbia that went under, and when they did some research on why they went under, they discovered that they were paying 4 times the going market rate for rent. So no wonder they couldn't make it. Unfortunately, because they didn't know that information, they couldn't go back to their landlord and say, "You're charging me too much. You know, you have a choice, either we're closing or you're reducing my rent." That's basic competitive intelligence information. Yeah.
Can you tell the students a little bit about your business model?
My business model is sort of seat of the pants. I started as an academic researcher, and I discovered through a workshop that I went to that there were no business researchers in the mid-Missouri area, literally no business researchers, which meant 2 things. One, I had a wide open marketplace, but I was also going to have to start an industry in this area, and it also is an indicator of problems for businesses in mid-Missouri, because like it or not, in our world now, given that everything is globalized, businesses have to make data-driven decisions. And because businesses in mid-Missouri have not had access to a business researcher, they are unable to apply that. There are business companies in the big cities, they look at us as being dollars. They don't look at us as being people who live here, who are running businesses and are supporting our regional economy. So it was very important to get somebody in who had the data science, statistical, and research skills to provide those services to business. There's been a learning curve both on my part and on the business's part.
How long have you been doing this?
It's a little over 2 years now.
And how do you find your clients?
Exactly what I'm doing here. I get out and I talk. I drink a lot of coffee with a lot of people. I pass out samples of my work. I evangelize for don't make decisions based upon your gut. There is something to be said for somebody who's been in business for 25 years. That experience counts for something. But in this world, you can no longer just rely on that experience. You need to back it up by looking at the data that's out there. Data there's a lot of publicly available data available if you know how to find it and how to put it together into a usable product. That's not always easy. And that's where somebody like me with data science skills comes in. We can, gather that data in, use data science platforms to create, a nice, pretty document that you can, either go through on your computer or flip through as a paper copy. Did you have a question? No?
have any success stories of clients that you worked with that you can talk to us about, an actual example?
I'm very early in getting complete projects with regional clients. And that's one of the things where I mentioned I am having to start an industry. Local businesses are often shocked by how much data-based products cost. So I'm having to really educate businesses about, the end value of the money that they spend with me. That said, I've had some very good luck with local commercial lenders. Working with three different lenders, commercial lenders in Columbia, I've developed some subscription products that collate 10 or more sources of data together into a cohesive document that they can then use to help them make informed lending decisions, but also to prove to regulatory agencies that their lending decisions are based on fact. In the Mid-Missouri area, in the commercial lending industry, most of that is what is called relationship banking, where a bank has lent money to the same local business for 25 or 30 years. They know that business is good. But when the FDIC or the SBA comes in, they have to prove to them that that business is a good lending risk. The local banks have not had those type of documents yet. They have them now. And I'm slowly accumulating subscriptions from local banks for those. Yeah, sorry, I didn't see you over there.
So research is very expensive. Can you touch a little bit on maybe some of the platforms that you would use more often than others?
Our studio. Are any of you involved in data science or statistics? If you aren't, high school students, hint, take math and statistics classes, learn how to do data science. You'll always have a job. Learn how to code now. You'll always have a job. It's very important. So there's a platform called RStudio that I use a lot. It's very powerful. I use Word and PowerPoint, the Word, the Microsoft products. You need to know how to use the full functionality of those. It seems silly, but I've actually spent a lot of time listening to videos, taking workshops on how to use all of the functionality of the Office products. There are right now I code in five languages. So knowing how to code in multiple languages helps. More importantly than that is understanding the basic flow of how to code in any language. There is a basic structure to that. It's not so much, are you an R aficionado, but do you understand basic code hygiene? If you're at all interested in coding, I highly recommend that you take classes, investigate it, at least. You can always go, it would be an excellent, even a fallback job opportunity for you. Yeah?
Going back to the previous comment about compiling information for banks in terms of regulatory, can you disclose, if I were to ask you one of the banks is Central Bank of the Midwest, can you disclose that?
I'm sorry, can I disclose what?
You said that you're compiling this information and you've done it for 2 or 3 banks in Columbia. Mm-hmm. Would one of those banks be Central Bank of the Midwest?
Central Bank of Missouri?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, thanks.
No. I am actually having lunch with somebody from Central Bank, the holding company. Yeah. Well, Central Bank, the way Central Bank is structured, there's the holding company, and then all Central Bank of Boone County, Central Bank of, drove by one in Tipton, those are all separately chartered banks. Yeah. So they haven't, they are interested, it'll be interesting to see how lunch goes on Friday. Yeah.
So when you're sitting down with a potential client, do you scope out the work? Do you cost it out project-based or hourly?
I scope it out project-based, and it takes a lot of conversations. It takes a lot of conversations to come up with the ideas. I know what I think is important, but that doesn't matter at all compared to what the problems that the individual companies face that can be solved with data. The two of the products, I've got some examples of them. I'll put them on the table over here if you want to leaf through them. Came just by having coffee with commercial lenders. You know, we really need to be able to get access to the business filing data from the Secretary of State's office. Unfortunately, it's almost unusable in the format that it's made to be publicly available. And if you download all of the raw data files, they're huge. There are 15 of them, and Excel and Access go. So you need to use a data science program like R to collate those together into a usable format. I just sit and talk to people. In that case, I made a prototype. We went back, we went through it. They said, no, we need this, we don't need that, put this here. And it just over the course of about 5 or 6 different meetings, I used their knowledge of their business and my skills, and data is not safe from me. If it's out there, I'll find it, to find the data and present it in a way that was useful to them. So in my business, it's all about working with people and the effort to communicate with them in their language. Do you guys have any questions? No?
Did you always know that you were going to one day start your own business?
No, I did not. So my mother died from multiple myeloma when I was 5. And when I was 8, I was watching a nature television show, and there was this, think Sir Richard Attenborough, and I'm not even going to try and do the cultured English accent. These scientists are mining the ocean for a cure for cancer. And at that point, I knew right then and there I was going to be a cancer researcher. So eventually, I went and I got a PhD in molecular pharmacology. And for about 15 years, I did cancer research, and I loved it. It was my avocation, my reason for getting up in the morning. And then one day I became allergic to mice. I mean, I'm allergic to a lot of things, but in terms of the lab, mice, got me. There are no biomedical labs out there that don't contain mouse antigens, and I cannot be around mice. So I had to leave the lab. I spent 2 or 3 years getting my health back because the little buggers really did me in. And when I did that, I realized I wasn't going to be able to just sit around and do nothing, or I'd become an alcoholic. So I went back and I got a master's in applied statistics, and I used both my PhD and my master's in applied statistics to work as a medical writer, kind of a sort of quasi-clinical researcher, mostly with academic clients and all remote. One day I woke up and I realized for the last week, the only other person I'd seen was my husband. I love him, but I needed to see more people. And so I just started looking around for something to do. And I went to a Cole County Extension Service workshop put on by Chris Thompson. And he taught us how to use a library resource called Reference USA to do basic competitive intelligence. And just on a whim, I looked up business researcher, and there were none. So then I was like, well, okay, this is an open market. I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to start a regional industry, but I'll do it slowly. For the first 2.5 years, I was the only business researcher in the area. There is another business researcher. He's a startup in Columbia. Unfortunately, he's still working full time, so he's only doing his business on the side. But the two of us have realized that we're stronger together. So we have agreed to collaborate with each other. We have overlapping skills, but we also each have different skills. And the businesses in mid-Missouri need all of those skills. So we will work together. So that's kind of my story. Yeah.
Where's your business based out of?
I have a home office in Jefferson City, but I also work out of the Regional Economic Development Incorporated Innovation Hub in Columbia. So I travel all over mid-Missouri. I mean, my goal is to bring business research and competitive intelligence to mid-Missouri businesses, and I look at that as being Jefferson City, Columbia, Sedalia, Fulton. Eventually, I'll get into all of these towns. So I do a lot of driving. Well, that's okay.
What was probably the biggest surprise to you in launching, running your own business, or a skill set you found that you did not have that you completely didn't expect?
I would say clearly I had no business background, no real understanding of how to run a business. I got a business coach, and I worked with that person, both through, if you're starting your own business, you're starting a business, there is a center called the Women's Business Center. It's based in Columbia. They have a free of charge business coach. Her name is Sherry Major. You probably know, you've met Sherry? Yeah. Take advantage of her. She goes through 8 counties. She was my first business coach. Eventually I moved on to a business coach for hire. So I've had 2 business coaches. That's been very helpful. The one thing that, kind of turning your question around, the one thing that I didn't think I had that apparently I do have is I always considered myself to be an introverted nerd, and who had trouble communicating with people, and apparently I do that just fine. So you learn, not only did I learn what I didn't know, but I learned things about myself that probably were always there and I just didn't recognize it before. So it's been a real growth. I did not expect starting an industry. I mean, I don't think I understood that I was starting an industry in addition to starting a business. That part I did not expect. It just seemed real obvious to me that businesses needed research and they needed to pay for it. So I'm having to really do some education in that regard.
Any more questions?
Before I go, Barbie has competition. This is Lamely. Lamely is a startup. She was produced by a startup through a Kickstarter. One of the criticisms of Barbie was that her body shape was completely unrealistic. Lamely's body shape was designed by using Centers for Disease Control data on the body dimensions of normal 19-year-old women. So she is marketed as a more realistic option for the teenage Barbie doll for young women. She's available online, and they have everything from Dr. Barbie to there's a handicapped Barbie, all sorts of. I mean, it's a really cool product. No, she's not made. She's made by an independent startup. If you search Lamely, you'll find her. I bought this Lamely for my best friend who is a psychologist. She works with young women with eating disorders. And like it or not, as women in our society, there's a body shape that we are bombarded with that no one can actually achieve. And Lamely helps her to show young women that they look normal.
Okay, Dr. Landon, I have the last question. What can we as a community do for you?
Be open to using data in your businesses. Be willing to talk with me and think about investing in business data. It is an investment. It needs to be done correctly. It is not inexpensive. To get businesses over that hump, I have started my subscription products, which are a known monthly cost. They are still not inexpensive, but at least businesses can start using data and seeing the power of data in mid-Missouri. So if there are any bankers, of any bankers who'd like to talk to me, I'd be happy to talk to them. Business development people, there are things I can do to help. So, thank you.